What is up, guys, and welcome to today's prediction video. Today we will be looking at the Premier League encounter between Manchester City and Newcastle United taking place on the 19th of August at the Etihad Stadium. It's not exactly been a very favourable encounter for Newcastle, with City obviously being the more dominant force in this tie. And I think the scariest part of it all is if you look at the amount of goals that are scored by both sides, actually. I think it's a busy day for both defenses. In the last meeting between the two, which took place at the Etihad as well, on the 4th of March 2023, City came out as 2-0 victors. Phil Foden opened the scoring in the 15th minute, thanks to a fantastic, amazing run. When he takes a shot, you can see it gets a slight deflection, and that just takes it over the keeper and into the net. But I think because if you look at his trajectory and the way he sort of just moves so quickly, I think it was destined to go in anyway. So Foden, brilliant goal as expected. Bernardo Silva then doubled City's lead in the 67th minute. He came on as a sub, and again it was a counter attack by City, but a good sequence of passes on the left wing. Eventually the ball getting to the box, and then Haaland just poking it towards Bernardo Silva, and him just blasting it into the back of the net. Now, despite the fact that it was 2-0 to City, it was also Ederson's 100th Premier League clean sheet, I think. But more importantly, I think, that 2-0 makes it seem like City was so in control and so dominant. And the truth is they really weren't. Newcastle really gave City a run for their money. It was a very competitive fixture. Newcastle having some fantastic opportunities of their own, but just not putting them away. And also being denied due to the brilliance of Ederson. Now, for our team analysis for Manchester City, I think it's very important to take note that City come off just having won the UEFA Super Cup against Sevilla, albeit on penalties. City looked like they struggled a little in that match, and I think that will be reflected again in this tie. Players I think we need to focus on, firstly, Mateo Kovacic, who came in from Chelsea. Kovacic will be expected to sort of fill the Gundogan role, just keep things solid in midfield, but still give City some options going forward, just giving them a bit more control in the center of midfield. Next up, we got to talk about Guardiola. Now, Guardiola was brought in as a young defender to cover in the back line should anything happen, and I guess it's just his luck that something did kind of happen. I think it's Ruben Diaz who's out, and I think John Stones is also not feeling too great. So Guardiola got the nod against Sevilla, and I think he's going to get the nod again against a Newcastle team that is probably going to look to trouble him quite a bit. But I think following some decent performances in the World Cup for Croatia, Guardiola is definitely showing some decent promise at Manchester City, and I think he will be a very important player in this fixture. If he can keep things solid at the back, then City don't really have to worry too much about conceding goals. But going forward for City, I think we got to highlight Jack Grealish again. Jack Grealish, what I really like about Jack Grealish is, people talk a lot about the assists of Kevin De Bruyne and the goals of Erling Haaland. But Jack Grealish has proven that you don't need to score and you don't need to assist to necessarily be the highlight player of the match. Grealish is very intelligent, and it's really come out now under Guardiola, where he knows exactly when to draw a foul, when he can take on a player, when he can take a shot. His decision making has just improved exponentially, and I think Grealish is definitely a player that we gotta keep our eye on. Newcastle have been the surprise package in the Premier League last season. I don't think anybody really expected Newcastle to even finish in a European spot, let alone in the top four. And I mean, it was a chase that went right down to the wire between them, and I think Manchester United was involved, and Liverpool as well, and Brighton. And at the end of the day, they were the ones who managed to secure the top four spot. I think a very important player for them last season was obviously the goalkeeper, Nick Pope. He's such a solid goalkeeper. I am just flabbergasted that nobody has tried to pick him up yet. I genuinely thought a move was on the cards for him to a club like Chelsea, perhaps, or even Manchester United. But then I think to myself, Newcastle have Champions League football and Chelsea don't really have that. So that would explain why he would want to stay at Newcastle right now. Next up, I think we got to look at Alexander Isak. Between Isak and I think it was Callum Wilson, Newcastle had goals galore last season up front. But I give the nod to Isak simply because Isak is a little bit more flexible, I think, than Wilson. Isak can play on either wing, he can play down the centre. And in Newcastle's 5-1 victory against Aston Villa on the opening weekend, Isak got a brace. So he's already hit the ground running, he's already doing what he needs to be doing, and he's so quick and so difficult to deal with. I think the matchup between him and Guardiola is going to be very, very important. And not just between him and Guardiola, but him and the entire backline of Manchester City. It's going to be such an important feature. And finally, I think I got to look at Sandro Tonali, who's come into Newcastle from AC Milan. I was really surprised when I saw that Milan had been willing to let go of Tonali. Tonali is kind of like their version of perhaps Gundogan, controlling things in the midfield, but also getting goals when it's necessary. He too scored in that 5-1 victory over Aston Villa. And I think this Italian player is going to be one of the standout players for Newcastle this season. This one is also a very difficult one to call. I think with Manchester City, there is so much hype around City right now, but so much expectation as well. People tend to sort of just forget that Gundogan is not at City anymore, Mahrez is not at City anymore, De Bruyne is injured. They kind of have a bit of a hole in centre midfield. I'm not saying that Kovacic cannot fill that hole and Foden cannot fill that hole, but I think it's still, you're not playing with the players you're used to playing with. You're not going out there with I would say your best 11. That's, again, not criticizing anybody, but City are just not at their best right now. And I mean, it was obvious in the Super Cup against Sevilla. Sevilla could have easily won that match by at least 3 goals. But again, it was down to Ederson just keeping Man City into that match. I think Newcastle will be less, I'm not going to say wasteful, but they'll be far more clinical than Sevilla were. And I think, that 5-1 just proves that Newcastle are already firing on all cylinders. I think we've got to take into consideration, though, that they are playing this match at the Etihad, and City at home are a very difficult team to deal with. I think a draw is very, very likely. But I think also, if Manchester City turn up the way we know they can turn up, they can win this one just as easily. So I think, again, I'm just going to say I think this one ends simply in a draw. Hi, thank you for making it to the end of this video. We really appreciate the watch time and the fact that you took some time out of your day to spend it with us talking about the sport that we all love. If you enjoyed the content, why not, drop a like down below or comment in the comment section. Maybe even consider subscribing to the channel. And I mean, while you are here right now, have a look at some of our old videos too. They should be appearing on the screen right now, along with that subscribe button. So you know exactly what to do. Thank you so much. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And have a great day out there. And we hope to see you again very, very soon. Thanks. Stay safe.